Hello, Utah. Thank you so much. I'm Mike Pence. I'm from the great state of Indiana. And it was just a little more than 3 months ago with my wife Karen at my side that I accepted my party's nomination to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And I couldn't be more honored. Couldn't be more honored and more humbled to be with all of you today. Thank you to Speaker Greg Hughes. Thank you for that great introduction. Greg knows me well enough to know that the introduction I actually prefer. It's pretty short. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. I appreciate Greg Hughes. I appreciate his values. Give a round of applause to Congressman Raul Labrador from the great state of Idaho is with us today. It is amazing to think as we stand here today, just however you reckon it, about 13 days short of a great victory all across the state of Utah and a victory all across the United States of America. Wow. You know, I got to tell you, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat. You have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And until not too long ago, it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own. But now this movement is coming together. Utah is coming together. America's coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States of America. You know, it's really a choice between two futures. It really is. So let me tell you where I stand. I choose a stronger America. I choose a more prosperous America. I choose an America that upholds our highest constitutional ideals. So I choose to stand with Donald Trump and every American who believes we can make America great again. You know, and it's... You know, and it's not like it's exactly a fair fight out there. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of 2-on-1. You know, I get up every morning. I got to turn on the television with a stick. You know, I don't even know what's going to be there. I mean, many in the national media get up every day and they do half of Hillary Clinton's work for her. But the amazing thing is Donald Trump is still winning hearts and minds every day, and he's going to win all the way to the Oval Office. I mean, it really is incredible. I mean, the latest thing you get this weekend is you get the national media and Hillary Clinton and their campaign are all trying to project this this thing that this campaign's all rolled up. Are you reading that kind of stuff? This air of inevitability, right? Well, let me tell you, Utah, don't buy it. Don't be fooled. This race is on. We are all knotted up here in Utah. It's all knotted up in America. We're going to drive all the way to the finish. You know, she may have the media, the money, and the special interests on her side. But Donald Trump and I have got to she may have the media, the money, and the special interests on her side. But I'm telling you what, from where I stand, we got a basket of Americans that are saying enough is enough. And you know, they're especially saying enough is enough on that fast and loose ethics that always accompanies the Clintons. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, it really is amazing to think that while she was, stay with me on this, while she was Secretary of State in charge of all of our foreign policy, she had a private family foundation that took millions of dollars from foreign governments. You with me? And then in between those two things, she had a private server to keep those emails of what was going on there apparently out of the public reach. And then when it was found out she had a private server, she used high technology and hammers to try and get rid of those emails. But you know, truth is a force of nature, and the truth's been coming out, right? We just found out about a week ago the FBI actually confirmed that the State Department under Hillary Clinton offered the FBI a quid pro quo if they'd let them change the classification status on some of those emails that they found on her server. Classified documents. We found out what they think of people of faith in this country. We saw emails. Her own campaign manager said that she thought that some people were Catholics in this country because it was more socially acceptable, most socially acceptable than being an evangelical. Now, all the while responding to an email that was critical of people for their Catholic faith. And then lastly, after all these promises, how they never made any decision at the State Department based on this pay-to-play stuff, we found out that while Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, after the terrible earthquake in Haiti, did you see this one? That contracts for rebuilding Haiti were supposed to be, her aide said they should be flagged for friends of the Clintons who wanted to get the government work and everybody else could just go to the website. You know, the American people are sick and tired of condescending attitudes coming out of Washington, D.C. about what we believe and who we are, and we're sick and tired of pay-to-play politics, and that's what's going to come to an end the day that Donald Trump becomes president of the United States. Because, you know, Donald Trump's got a plan. He's got a plan to restore honesty, accountability, and change to Washington, D.C. First 100 days, we're going to pass the kind of ethics reforms that once and for all will drain the swamp in Washington, D.C., and we'll have government as good as our people. We're going to do it. You know, in the last week, Donald Trump announced our plan, a contract with the American voter. The man who wrote the art of the deal has got a deal for the American people. And the contrast between what Donald Trump and I are offering the country and Hillary Clinton's failed record has got to be talked about here in Utah and all over the country. It's about security, it's about prosperity, and it's about the highest court in the land. I mean, men and women, I just have to tell you, on the security front, we've got to go out and talk about Hillary Clinton's record. Okay? The truth of the matter is, there's only two people on the ballots that you're going to cast here in Utah that have any chance of being president of the United States. And we got to talk about it. We got to talk about her record. So here it is. Despite traveling millions of miles as our Secretary of State, there's no doubt the world is more dangerous today than the day that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama took over our foreign policy. 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's brand of foreign policy has weakened America's place in the world. Our allies are less secure, our enemies are more emboldened. You know, history teaches that weakness arouses evil. And I would submit to you that the weak and feckless foreign policy of Hillary Clinton, the architect of the Obama foreign policy, Hillary Clinton, of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, and paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states is emblematic of a weak and feckless approach to the world. You know, let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we won't be paying ransom to terrorist sponsoring states. They'll be paying a price if they threaten or detain American citizens. But it was Hillary Clinton who initiated that disastrous agreement with the radical mullahs in Iran. I got to tell you, Congressman Labrador is here. My friend Congressman Jeb Hensarling, one of the great conservatives in America from Texas, is with us here today. Give him a round of applause. He's an awesome guy. I remember back in the day when we were passing those brutalizing sanctions on Iran. You guys remember. The whole idea was we weren't going to take those sanctions off the leading state sponsor of terror until they permanently abandoned their nuclear ambitions. And all this administration got. Iran got $150 billion and a big pallet of cash. All we got was a delay in their nuclear ambitions. Think about that. The leading state sponsor of terrorism is now on track to obtain the most dangerous weapons in the world. You know, and it was Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State who failed to renegotiate an agreement with Iraq that would have allowed us to have forces remain in that country to secure the hard-fought gains of the American soldier. You know, I remember those days from afar. I traveled downrange to visit our soldiers every year for 10 years in Operation Iraqi Freedom and Operation Enduring Freedom. I saw the sacrifices of our servicemen and women. I saw the sacrifices of their families. Karen and I stood by the gravesides quietly and wept with the fallen and their families. It's important for us to remember that by the end of 2008, through great sacrifice and hard-fought gains, the American soldier won the peace in Iraq, and the stability of that nation was secured. It was done. When Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton took over things, Iraq was secure. It truly was. Before I go one step further, I'm going to bet that there's more than a few men and women that have worn the uniform here today, especially in those recent conflicts. Would you mind just raising your hand in the air so we could show the proper appreciation? Thank you for your service from the bottom of my heart. But it was Hillary Clinton who failed to renegotiate an agreement with the sovereign country of Iraq, took all of our forces out, created a vacuum in which the monstrous terrorist organization ISIS was able to rise up out of the desert and literally overrun vast areas that have been won through extraordinary sacrifice by the American soldier. And as we stand here today, there's more than 5,000 American special forces in harm's way outside Mosul, having to win back what the American soldier had already won before Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama squandered it. And lastly, it was Hillary Clinton and her State Department who left Americans in harm's way in Benghazi. And after 4 Americans fell, she actually told their parents at Dover Air Force Base when their sacred remains came home that it was because of a filmmaker, even though she knew and wrote to her own daughter the night of the attack that it was a terrorist-style Al-Qaeda attack. When she was confronted before the United States Senate, she spoke words that we'll never forget of those 4 fallen Americans and the reasons why they fell. She said, quote, "What difference at this point does it make?" Let me tell you something from my heart. As the proud parents of a United States Marine, I want to tell you, anybody who said that, anybody who did that, should be disqualified from ever serving as Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the United States of America. You don't leave Americans in harm's way. And then you don't say, "What difference does it make when they fall?" This administration has failed in its test of leadership and failed with regard to our military. We have the smallest army, standing army, since 1940. The average age of our aircraft in the Air Force today is older than the pilots that we trained to fly. And today, we have the smallest number of ships in the United States Navy since 1916. Men and women of Utah, we cannot have 4 more years apologizing to our enemies, abandoning our friends, and neglecting the arsenal of democracy. For America to be safe, for the world to be safe, America needs to be strong, and Donald Trump will lead on the world stage with American strength. We will rebuild our military. We will restore the arsenal of democracy. We will give our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines the resources and training they need, and they will hunt down and destroy ISIS at its source and every terrorist organization that threatens our peace. You know, that's probably why Donald Trump has been endorsed by more than 200 retired admirals and generals, including 20 Medal of Honor winners, to be the next Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces of this nation. But it's not just security abroad. It's about safety at home. And truthfully, we live in a very challenging time for men and women who wear the uniform of law enforcement. I don't know about the rest of you, but it seems, my uncle was a cop. He was one of my heroes growing up. And I just have to tell you, it breaks my heart that it seems like every time there's tragedy that follows a moment where a police officer is performing their duty, instead of all of us calling for the accountability and the transparency that is our right as citizens, there's too many in the media and too many on the political left who are quick to use a broad brush to demean all the men and women in law enforcement as a force for division in our society. Donald Trump and I know that men and women who serve in law enforcement are not a force for division. They are a force for good. They are the best of us. They put their lives on the line every single day for the rest of us, and we should honor and support them. There's a lot of members of law enforcement here today. Would you all mind catching the eye of one of them and just turn around, just show these people how much you really do appreciate the job that they do each and every day. As the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, I promise you, President Donald Trump will stand by the men and women in law enforcement at every level. We will provide them with the resources and the training they need to protect our families and come home safe to theirs, and we will restore law and order to every city and every community in the land. That's probably why more than 330,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed Donald Trump to be the next president of the United States. So it's about security abroad, it's about safety at home, but their record here and our plans here couldn't be more different when it comes to the prosperity of this nation. We're in the midst of the weakest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Listen to these numbers today. I know things are good here in Utah. You've had strong leadership here in Utah, low taxes, sensible regulation. The truth of the matter is, I promise you, Here in Utah, you know what we know in Indiana. Any progress you've made here has been in spite of what's been coming out of Washington, D.C., not because of it. Today across this country, nearly 1 in 4 Americans in their prime earning years isn't even working. Listen to this one. 1 in 5 households have no one with a job living under the same roof. 45 million Americans on food stamps, 47 million Americans living in poverty. Hillary Clinton's plan? More of the same. More of the same failed ideas. More taxes, more regulation, more Obamacare, more of the war on American energy that's stifling American jobs and growth. You know, they tell us this economy is the best we can do. Just be patient. Things are getting better all the time, right? Well, I think you in Utah know it's nowhere near the best that we can do. It's just the best they can do. And when Donald Trump becomes president of the United States of America, we're going to put common sense, conservative principles into practice, and we're going to get all of America working again. Because Donald Trump's got a plan. Donald Trump's got a plan. After we re-elect Republican majorities in the United States House and the United States Senate, we're going to roll our sleeves up in the first 100 days, and we're not going to raise taxes by $1 trillion that Hillary Clinton wants to do. We're going to cut taxes across the board for working families, small businesses, and family farms. We're going to get rid of death taxes once and for all. And we're going to lower business taxes in America so American companies can compete with companies around the world and create jobs right here. And when it comes to two forms of taxation, you know, that I always like to say this back in the Hoosier State, the government can take your money and spend it, or they can tell you how to spend it. That's called regulation, right? And you all know here in Utah, just like we do in Indiana, I mean, this avalanche of acronyms flowing out of Washington, D.C. is stifling growth and jobs. The EPA, the OSHA, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? So day one of the Trump-Pence administration, Donald Trump's going to sign a moratorium on any new federal red tape. And we're going to repeal every unconstitutional Obama executive order on day one. You do it. Because Donald Trump and I know that trade means jobs. When Donald Trump becomes negotiator-in-chief, we're going to have trade. But once again, trade is going to mean American jobs first. And we're going to hold our trading partners accountable for the commitments that they make to our people. And lastly, Donald Trump and I are going to work with newly re-elected majorities in the House and in the Senate to pry off the back of this economy what even former President Bill Clinton called the craziest thing in the world. Did you hear about this? Literally. I was there when we were fighting against Obamacare on Capitol Hill. Jeb, you remember those days? I'll never forget Speaker Nancy Pelosi was driving that bill through, and she went to the floor one day. This is an absolute quote. I actually heard it with my own ears. Nancy Pelosi went to the floor and said, "We've got to pass this bill so we can find out what's in it." Well, we did. We did. Just this last Monday, the Obama administration themselves announced that the average premiums for Obamacare's basic plans is going to go up 25% next year alone. Do you remember him telling you if you like your doctor, you can keep it? Not true. Do you remember them telling you if you like your health insurance, you can keep it? Not true. You remember them telling you that health insurance would be more affordable in America with the Affordable Care Act? Not true. I mean, the truth of the matter is when you got Bill Clinton out there calling it now the craziest thing in the world. I mean, I guess that's evidence that even with the Clintons, occasionally truth happens. But don't be deceived. Don't be deceived by Bill Clinton's new skepticism. Earlier this year, Hillary Clinton said, and I quote, "Before they called it Obamacare, They called it Hillary Care. Make no mistake about it, Hillary Clinton went up to Canada and gave a speech. We finally got a copy of it. She told them up in Canada that she hoped for a Canadian-style healthcare system. Well, in Canada they have socialized medicine. And Hillary Clinton, one of the fixes she's talking about for Obamacare is a single-payer option. My favorite, though, is that last week, you hear about President Obama went down to Florida to talk about Obamacare? He did. It was the 3rd anniversary of the rollout of Obamacare, and he went down to brag about it. He actually compared Obamacare to the Samsung Galaxy 7 phones that spontaneously burst into flames. It's true. He did. Here's his quote. Here's what the president said. Or at least this is what a former speechwriter wrote for him, I think. Said, quote, when one of these companies comes out with a new smartphone and it has a few bugs, what do? They fix it. They upgrade it. Unless it catches fire, then they pull it off the market. Well, what a coincidence, Mr. President, because that's exactly what we're going to do with Obamacare. We're going to pull it off the market so it stops burning up our wallets. We're going to repeal Obamacare lock, stock, and barrel, and we're going to replace it not with the socialized medicine that Hillary Clinton wants to slide in as a so-called fix, but here's a crazy idea. Let's use the power of the free marketplace. Let's give people more consumer choice, allow the free market economy to create health insurance products for the American people. That's the American way, and that's what the Trump-Pence administration is going to do. So it's about security at home and abroad. It's about prosperity, and the choices couldn't be more dramatic. But it's also, men and women here in Utah, it's also about some profound issues and values in this country, emanating around life and liberty and the Supreme Court of the United States of America. It's literally on the ballot. I mean, did you see that right out of the gate? I got to tell you, with the passing of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia, the balance of our Supreme Court is literally on the ballot this year. I mean, elect Hillary Clinton as president, you better get used to more unelected judges using unaccountable power to take unconstitutional actions. Did you hear her answer a week ago? I actually brought a copy of it. Hillary Clinton was asked about her philosophy about the Supreme Court. She said, quote, the Supreme Court should represent all of us. That's how I see the court. And the kind of people I'd be looking for would be standing up for the powerful, standing up on behalf, etc., etc. Well, you know, I served in the representative branch of government. I was a congressman for 12 years. The Congress represents the people of the districts and the states. The president arguably represents all the American people. Hillary, the Supreme Court is appointed to uphold the Constitution of the United States, settle disputes, and uphold our laws. It's not the representative branch of government. But that's the approach of the left. It's that, literally is that legislating from the bench, men and women. I mean, the truth is what you heard in that debate last week is there's no restriction on abortion Hillary Clinton would ever support. There's no restriction on the Second Amendment Hillary Clinton would ever oppose. So let me just say to you here in Utah, right out of the gate, for the sake of the rule of law, for the sake of the sanctity of life, for the sake of our Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, for the sake of all of our God-given liberties enshrined in the Bill of Rights, we must ensure here and now in the great state of Utah that the next president making appointments to the Supreme Court of the United States will be President Donald Trump. It's just that important. But it's not just about the court and the interpretation of the law, it's also about the laws that we enact. It's about standing for life and standing for liberty. And let me promise you, When Donald Trump becomes president of the United States, we're going to sign the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act and end all late-term abortions once and for all. We're going to stand for life. When Donald Trump becomes president, we're going to assure that no taxpayer dollars are used to fund abortion. We're going to make the Hyde Amendment permanent law. And when Donald Trump becomes president, the largest abortion provider in America will no longer be the largest recipient of federal funding under Title X. We're going to defund Planned Parenthood and redirect those dollars to women's health programs that don't also provide abortion. We're going to stand for life in the Trump-Pence administration. And we're going to stand for liberty, particularly when it comes to the religious liberty of our people. You know, there's a great story about Donald Trump. It's a story about a year ago. He was meeting with some pastors from all around the country, and several of them had expressed enthusiasm for him. And Donald Trump, as he always is, he's a businessman, so he knows how to ask for the order, right? So they said, we're kind of for you. He said, well, can you go tell people about that? And every one of them kind of looked at the ground and said, well, no, we can't. And he said, why? It really, it's an interesting moment. You know, I always say that, you know, politicians always ask what. Leaders ask why. So Donald Trump asked him why, and every one of the pastors in the room said, well, since the 1950s, there's been this law on the books that essentially prohibits tax-exempt organizations, religious organizations, from ever expressing an opinion for or against in a federal campaign, or they risk losing their tax-exempt status. You know, when you think about the role of the freedom of religion in the life of this country, and here in the state of Utah, that just is where you just personify all the great values of this nation in so many ways. You think of the very founding. You think of the very founding of this nation. Some of the most fiery speeches that were given for independence in the American founding and distributed as pamphlets, history records those were actually sermons that were given from pulpits. When you think about the way we brought slavery to an end in this country, you think of the father of Harriet Beecher Stowe. It was the voice of faith and communities of faith who condemned slavery and brought about the abolition of slavery. You think of Karen and I have stood in the very pews of Dr. Martin Luther King's church in Montgomery, Alabama. We've talked to the people who gathered there to sing and to pray and then to march. And the civil rights movement itself, buoyed up by the conscience of a nation, led by a pastor and led by people of faith. It's extraordinary. The role of people of faith in the life of this nation has moved us toward a more perfect union and can move us still. And I couldn't be more proud that because of Donald Trump's leadership, for the first time in the history of the Republican Party, the full repeal of the Johnson Amendment is included in the platform of our party. We will repeal that law and we will free up the voices of faith across America in this new administration. And America will be better, and America will be stronger for it. So I gather with you today. I gather with you today at a very challenging time in the life of our nation. You know, I stopped by a CVS the other day, and the woman behind the counter said, "Hey, Governor," I was back home. She said, "Governor, we're all for you." I said, "Thanks." And then she said, "You know, it seems like the only opinions you're allowed to have anymore is somebody else's." You ever get that way? I think the American people are tired of being told. Tired of being told this is as good as it gets. We're tired of being told, frankly, by leaders in both political parties that they'll get to solving these problems someday, but just not today. We're tired of being told, as Ronald Reagan said, that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives better for us than we can plan them for ourselves. So the American people are ready to be heard. They're ready to give voice to their values and to their vision for this country. And the way you do that, first and foremost, it's my first request of you today, is vote. Vote early. Vote today. and bring a friend. Men and women, early voting has started here in Utah. And you've already kind of, you've taken part of the day, so what the heck? In for a penny, in for a pound. Grab a friend. I did a little homework before I came over. Salt Lake County Clerk, 2001 South State Street. Here at Salt Lake City, open Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And if you're up for a good walk, it's 2.2 miles from right here. Go vote. Walk out the door and go cast that vote. And bring a neighbor and a friend, because I got more I want you to do in the next 12 and a half days. Okay? I mean, truthfully, men and women, that's where we're all heard. When the curtain closes and you press the button. The second thing I want you to do is go tell somebody after you get that vote done. Okay? I mean, you got one of those red hats on, don't take it off for another 12 and a half days. And then you can wear it for 4 years. But I need you to go tell somebody. It really is amazing. I started out, I said to you, since I joined this campaign, it's like it's been 2-on-1 out there, it's like your favorite team is out there playing every game on the road with a, hometown crowd and home cooking refs. I mean, it's pretty tough. But the amazing thing is we're still seeing tremendous momentum in this movement. We're seeing Donald Trump winning hearts and minds every day, and I think it's because the American people are talking to each other, and they're talking about what this election's really all about. So I need you to go tell somebody. I mean, this is the bottom line. I'll give you a couple thoughts when you go talk to your neighbors and friends. I mean, this is just change versus the status quo. I mean, Hillary Clinton's whole campaign is if you like your status quo, you can keep it. And she'll keep that promise. But there's one other way it's a little more profound than that. Maybe you could tell, say I ran into Mike down at a rally, he told me this thing. Maybe you could just tell a neighbor and a friend. So I really believe this. Sometimes back in the Hoosier State, there's not really a dime's worth of difference sometimes between the people on either side of the ballot. That never happens in Utah, I'm sure. But, sometimes you vote and you think, well, it doesn't really matter who. This isn't such a time. I mean, men and women, I got to tell you, from where I stand, this isn't even so much a choice between left and right or between Republican and Democrat. This is a choice, as Ronald Reagan said in 1964, this is a choice between up and down. Okay, you with me? I mean, this is a choice of, here's the choice. Are we going to continue to go down the hill that we've been going down to a weaker America at home and abroad, a more stifled American economy, an America walking farther away from our most cherished constitutional ideals, or are we going to stop, plant our feet, turn around, and march back up the hill to a stronger America at home and abroad, a more prosperous America for our children and grandchildren, an America grounded in our constitutional ideals? That's the choice. And you got to go tell somebody. And some people particularly I want you to tell here in Utah. I want you to tell some of our fellow Republicans. Would you please? I mean, look, in this campaign, it really is remarkable. Donald Trump's message has won over independents around this country. Truthfully, the people tired of gridlock in Washington, D.C., tired of all the pay-to-play corruptions, independents in America are coming to this campaign. We've won over many Democrats around America, tired of the avalanche of liberal policies. They're tired of trade deals that are chasing jobs out of this country. But now it's time to reach out to our fellow Republicans here in Utah and all over the country and say with one voice, it's time to come home. I want you to tell your Republican neighbors and friends, this is not the time to make a statement. This is our chance to make a difference. I mean, the truth of the matter is there's only two names on that ballot that have a chance to be President of the United States of America. And while I'll always respect the right of any man or woman to cast their vote in the manner that they seem best. I got to say to you from my heart, I truly do believe a vote for any candidate other than Donald Trump is a vote for a weaker America at home and abroad. A vote for any candidate other than Donald Trump is a vote for an America that continues to walk away from our highest ideals of life and liberty and our Constitution. And a vote for any candidate other than Donald Trump, bottom line, is a vote to make Hillary Clinton the 45th President of the United States. It's a hard truth. So it's time to come home. It's time for Republicans to come home. Come home to vote for the Trump-Pence team. Come home to re-elect strong Republican majorities in the House and the Senate. And to all my fellow Republicans, I say it's time to come home to make sure that Hillary Clinton is never elected president of the United States of America. Okay. But as you go from here, as you leave here today, if you're taking notes, I want you to vote. Vote early. Bring a friend. Number two, I want you to go tell somebody the next 12 and a half days. Spread the word. Tell them what this election's really all about, and especially reach out to our Republican friends here in Utah. And lastly, I would just say to you, have faith. Have faith. Have faith in the American people. Have faith in the boundless capacity of the American people to set things right. I mean, the truth of the matter is, at different times throughout our nation's history, we face much more challenging days than we face today. But we've got to do what Donald Trump said in that Gettysburg speech. He said, and I quote, we've got to, quote, rise above the noise and clutter of our broken politics and embrace the great faith and optimism that has always been central to the American people. We've got to have faith. Faith in the American people. So go with confidence. And go with the other kind of faith as well. You know, I know many of you in this room do what Karen and I do from time to time. You bow the head, you bend the knee, and be a good time to do it in the next 12 and a half days. And you know what? I'm not so much on this one. I'm here to champion our team, our ticket, our cause. But on this one, I just encourage you, in these divided times in our country, new and unknowable threats on the world stage, economic uncertainty at home. It seems like more division in our country than any time that I can remember. This is a good time for us to just pray for our country. And when you pray, you know, I rather like how Abraham Lincoln put it. He was asked one time if he thought God was on his side, and he said, you know, I rather concern myself with whether we're on God's side than whether he's on our side. So pray that. And as you do, I encourage you to pray with confidence, because I truly do believe what's been true for millennia is still true today. If his people, who are called by his name, will humble themselves and pray, he'll do like he's always done in much more challenging times. He'll hear from heaven, and he'll heal our land. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice